Time for the next episode of What Makes This Company Great. The company today is Intel. And man, have I got a story for you. If you don't know Intel or you're not my age, you won't know this story. So I'll tell you about that as we get into the presentation. So let's look at Intel and try to answer the question. Number one, what makes this company great? And number two, is this company financially world class? So Intel's products, more than half of sales are from processors. They have accelerators, boards and systems, connectivity, memories, storage, and platform products like the products that are running your computer, Intel Inside. Intel's segments are Client Computing Group, which includes Intel's core processors, and the Data Center Group, which includes products for cloud communication and infrastructure, and networking and edge products designed for internet connectivity. And what are the revenue segments? Well, let's look at those three segments. We can see that about 50% of the revenue comes from the client computing group, and the data center and AI generates about 30%, and then network and edge 14%. So actually what's interesting about Intel is that almost all of its revenue, a huge amount, let's say 42%, comes from three customers: Dell, Lenovo, and HP. Those three companies are the main manufacturers of computers. And so if something happened to any of those, it would be serious impact on Dell. They're first in CPU market share with about 71% versus AMD at about 20%. And in 1965, the company was founded by Gordon Moore, co-founder, and he stated that Moore's law, which is the number of transistors on a microchip, will double every 2 years, while the price of the device will be cut in half. And Moore's law has been very, very accurate over a long period of time. Let's look at some of Intel's acquisitions. They spent $17 billion on Altera Semiconductors, $15 billion on Mobileye, which is machine learning, $8 billion on McAfee, internet securities, and Habana Labs, which is machine learning technologies. Those are just some of the recent acquisitions. I thought this article was interesting. Intel may have bottomed, but earnings will show if chipmaker can hope to catch up to NVIDIA and AMD in AI. Of course, AI is all the rage, and so all of these companies are being pushed. So interesting to see. So let's look at the competitive position of Intel. Founded in 1968, it's in the infotech sector. It's got 132,000 employees and about $63 billion in revenue. And the main revenue is coming from core processors. And its competitive advantage stems from its technological leadership in the semiconductor industry. And how was this achieved? Well, Intel's competitive advantage comes from continuous innovation in microprocessor design, manufacturing, enable high-end performance, energy efficient chips, and partnerships with major computer manufacturers further enhance the competitive position. One of the big things that they did was do Intel Inside. So even though you're buying a Dell computer, it would say Intel Inside, a great marketing move. Now, I want to tell you a little story about the background here. And before I do that, first, let's meet Andy Grove. And this is a picture of Andy Grove on the left with the mustache, and Robert Noyce and Gordon Moore, the three founders of Intel. Andy Grove is an interesting character. He was Hungarian-born, American engineer, businessman, and a CEO of Intel. He played a pivotal role in shaping Intel's success and its transformation into a global powerhouse in the semiconductor industry. He's known for his strategic leadership, driving Intel's shift from memory chips to microprocessors, which proved instrumental in the company's dominance. And Grove was a survivor of the Holocaust and immigrated to the US, where he went on to become a key technology figure. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit more about Grove and the story of what went on in Intel in those days. Now, in 1985, Intel found itself teetering on the brink of disaster. Its earnings had dwindled to almost nothing, leaving the company in a precarious position. The following year proved even more disastrous as Intel suffered a staggering loss of $173 million. The employees were gripped by fear as the threat of layoffs, plant closures, salary cuts, and unpaid leaves loomed over them like a dark cloud. 1985 was 2 years after I graduated from high school, and Intel was not in a super strong position, not like it is now. Now, the major source of Intel's troubles was the Japanese memory chip. And basically, these Japanese memory chip makers were emerging as formidable competitors in the mid 1980s. It was a cruel twist of fate since memory chips had been Intel's original bread and butter. So think about memory chips. That was really where Intel started. And all of a sudden, the Japanese started wiping the floor with Intel in memory chips in the mid 80s. Now, Intel president Andy Grove called the Japanese semiconductor manufacturers' ruthless tactic the 10% rule. In other words, they would undercut Intel's prices by 10% to win customers. And if Intel tried to match their prices, the Japanese manufacturers would go another 10% lower, engaging in a relentless battle to secure customers at pretty much any cost. And for those people who weren't living at that time, in the 80s and early 90s, the fear was the Japanese would be dominant and beat the US in every way, in every place. It's sort of the way many people feel about China these days. Now, to salvage the situation, Intel's management brainstormed a few strategies. One option was to construct an enormous factory dedicated to establishing a cost advantage over their Japanese counterparts. Another approach involved pushing the boundaries of technology to develop a new and superior memory chip. And the third was they considered targeting niche markets as a means of survival. Now, whenever you're in a competition to reduce price or reduce costs, it can be a race to the bottom and is sometimes a sign that the industry is oversupplied. So, however, after nearly a year of heated internal debates, a stark realization dawned upon Intel CEO Andy Grove. None of the proposed options seemed capable of rescuing the company from its dire circumstances. The memory business appeared to be an unsolvable puzzle, but abandoning it altogether would feel like a crushing defeat for the company, considering it was the foundation upon which Intel was built and how it built its success. So, in a moment of contemplation, Andy Grove turned to his colleague, co-founder Gordon Moore, and he posed a hypothetical question that hung in the air, laden with significance. And the question was, if we were ousted as management of this company and a new CEO took over, what do you think they would do? Without a moment's notice, without a moment's hesitation, Moore responded by saying that new CEO would get us out of the memory business. Boom. This is what you call zero-based thinking when you try to say, if we weren't in this now, what would we do? Of course, at that point, a spark ignited within Grove as he absorbed Moore's words. The gravity of the situation became clear, and a daring plan took shape in his mind. Grove said, why shouldn't you and I walk out that door only to return and do it ourselves? And so that's precisely what they did. They swiftly shifted Intel's resources away from the faltering memory business and towards their microprocessor division. At the time, microprocessors played second fiddle to Intel's memory business. So Intel pioneered microprocessors in 1971, but by the mid 1980s, the market had become flooded with competitors, while a downturn had led to excess capacity. Now, on the surface, microprocessors didn't appear to be an attractive venture. Yet, driven by their audacity and conviction, Grove and Moore made a bold decision to commit Intel's future to microprocessors. Little did they know that this gamble would prove to be the company's salvation, setting it on the path to achieving the greatness that it holds today. The company truly is a great company. I wanted to tell that story because I know that many young people and people who weren't around at that time don't remember what had happened with Intel. And it's pretty significant what Andy Grove did. And it gives us a good lesson on how to build competitive advantage and how to set your strategy. So the next question we want to ask is Intel financially world-class? That's a question that we can look at. Here's my method that I use to, as an investor and a business owner, to measure whether a company has a competitive advantage. The world-class benchmarking scorecard that we developed 10 years ago. And here's how we construct the scorecard for any company. We gather the yearly and quarterly financial data of 26,000 companies worldwide. We then calculate each company's profitable growth score, which is a composite measure of both profitability and growth. After that, we rank the subject company relative to sector peers of a similar size. A decile ranking is what we use. 1 is best and 10 is worst. A score of 1 or 2 is financially world-class. And we assess the company's performance over the prior 4 years and the past 12 months. Now, the story I told you about Intel is over a long period of time, and surely the company has been financially world-class for many years. But what we can see is that in 2022 and the past 12 months, Intel has lost that financially world-class position, ranked at an 8 and a 10. This is worrying, and of course, it probably is temporary. Let's see what the company's saying. The 2022 revenue was $63 billion, down $16 billion, or 20% down from 2021 due to an uncertain macroeconomic environment with slowing consumer demand, persistent inflation, and higher interest rates. Well, you can see that that's hit Intel much harder than it hit its competitors and other companies, large infotech companies. The Client Computing Group revenue decreased 23% due to lower notebook and desktop volume. Data center and AI revenue decreased 15% as customers reduced inventory, and network and edge revenue increased 11%. So it was a brutal first 2022. So is your company financially world-class? That's the question that I want to ask. Is your company financially world-class? And also, if you own or lead a company with more than $15 million in annual revenue, just comment or DM me and I'll score your company. That wraps up Intel. Is this company financially world-class? Let me know if you have any questions or comments. Have a great day.